there, it's Jacob once again from Ostrava. I'm after 7th round of the Ostravsky Konik Open A. And what a game that was the first time I had a chance to play against a Polish player. So, yeah, a former of mine. It was a pretty good and long, but also exhausting game because it took me over 4.5 hours. And yeah, you will see how it went. First of all, yeah, it has started with. Sorry. Yeah, it had started with d4. I played as black. I answered d5, c4, e6. So classical Queen's Gambit. Knight to f3 and a6. That's a provocative move that tried to convince my opponent to take the pawn on d5 immediately, because otherwise, yeah, this is the preparational move for later to play b5 after either taking the pawn on myself and to defend the pawn, or to chase the bishop from c5 after yeah taking that with the white square bishop. And yeah, my opponent took that as I hoped. Knight to c3, knight to f6, queen g5, pin from my opponent here. Bishop to e6. Yeah, on purpose, I've made a weak square on b7. That's undefended pawn, but yeah, I had that prepared, because in case of that, I was willing to sacrifice the pawn and to have the active pieces as yeah, as a return here. And yeah, as you can see, it's hard to develop the king side for my opponent here, because if you try to play something like that, then I can easily pin him here. And yeah, he's starting to have a serious trouble here. But yeah, that wasn't what has happened in the game. After bishop to e6, e3, knight to d7, bishop to d3, bishop to d6, castle, castle, queen to c2, and yeah, that's of course the attack to my pawn on f7. If I would play something silly like this one, it can be taken because I'm not allowed to take that with the knight. Otherwise, I'm losing the queen. So yeah, I was forced to play h6. Bishop went to h4, c6. Additional move to defend the d5 square. And here my opponent went with e4, and yeah, I couldn't allow to make that pawn to make a move to e5, because then it would be simply too strong to handle. And of course, I'm still pinned here, so it would be really problematic for me. This is why taking on e4 was nearly forced. Knight takes, and the bishop returns to e7. And it seems like my position is at least okay. Opponent played rook to e1, and yeah, here we have the good example of isolated pawn. And the best practice when you're playing against such pawn is to try to exchange as many knights and bishops, or so yeah, light pieces as possible, to keep rooks and queens on the board, and try to attack the pawn afterwards, the weak pawn. And yeah, that was my plan here. However, I thought that yeah, I'm not forced to do that immediately, and I played rook to e1. After the game, I think that more effective would be playing here. I'm forcing the exchange on e7, and after bishop to here, I could simply play here. I'm blocking the d pawn from being pushed forward. And there are only two pieces left, other than yeah, the rooks and the queens here, and that should be yeah, favorable for me probably. But yeah, I thought that I don't need to rush with that. I thought that I still have a time to yet to do some preparation here. So this is why I have played rook to e8. But he returned the knight to c3. I was trying to force yeah, some exchanges, so play to knight to d5. I thought that yeah, either he will exchange the pieces here or here. But yeah, he has found the move bishop g3. And during the game, my calculation was okay, he can get that bishop back to g3, but then I would force the exchange of the white square bishop. And in Queen's Gambit, white, yeah, white square bishop on white side is much stronger than the dark one. And yeah, that's just a rule for this opening. So I thought that taking out this one would be a really good exchange for me. But I have missed one of the lines that my opponent has found. Bishop to 8 7. I'm forced to yeah, move the king away, and queen to b1. Very unintuitive move, but yeah, everything seems to hold here, and that was yeah, at least okay line for my opponent. I thought that probably knight to f6 is not that good because my opponent could get the activity of the queen after such line. But probably I should be at least equal after such line, offering the exchange, and then white is either forced to exchange the queens. So yeah, another additional advantage for me, exchanging more pieces here, and then there is a higher chance that the d4 pawn at the end would be vulnerable. Or as an alternative, he can just return to really unintuitive b1 square, because if he would go to any other place like here, I can yeah make a double attack on either d3 or c2. Both would work for me. So that was the line that was available here. Instead, I have decided to play bishop to f6. That wasn't as good as the knight to f6. A3, knight to f8, adding an extra defender to e6 to e6. I went to d5 and knight to e5. And yeah, right now it's hard to make a progress as black because yeah, you would prefer to move the queen away to the side, then activate the rook. But yeah, how to play further? It's really hard to make any real progress here because all of my pieces are simply stacked, and it's hard to, yeah, to do anything. So yeah, I've decided to maybe try to activate the rook on this side a bit, try to fight for the advantage on the queen side to win some space. And yeah, first I played king to g8, and after queen to d3, I have played a5 with the plan of playing a4 later on, and to put my queen on a5 to make a space for the rook on d8. And that this setup was the best that I could get, probably from that position. At least that was what I have found out during the game. But my opponent has found even stronger return here. Knight to c4, and right now he's threatening me with playing either later on the knight to b6 after some exchanges on d5, or on he's threatening putting the knight on d6, which would be really active. So I was forced to do the exchange on d5 first, and they then decided to get directly to the end game here, because I thought that this is my only hope here. If I would take the knight here, I thought that yeah, my opponent would have the pair of the bishop, which should be preferable at this kind of the position, and also my opponent would have a pretty easy game trying to make a pressure on the b7 pawn here, and also bishop is supporting that here, so that will be really hard for me to play. So yeah, instead I've decided to offer going directly to the endgame. I have played here, and that has forced yeah, both sides to get to this position, in which it seems at first that oh yeah, of course I couldn't take that with the queen because of the double attack on b6. Was forced to take that with the pawn, and after knight to d6, my position seems to be really hard because yeah, right now there is a threat of putting the rook on e8 and take the rook on a8. So I've played queen to d7, and it seems like yeah, my opponent could simply play here, and after moves like that, it seems like yeah, it's pawns up, but I have a really nice move that which is queen to e6. And right now my opponent has some challenges on his side because what is my yeah, my threat that I'm doing to my opponent here. Uh, there is the problem with the first line because my opponent will be forced to return the queen and leave the outpost on the c3 pawn, or he would be forced to yeah, to play something like that to move the knight away, and then yeah, at least I'm winning the pawn back here in such occasion. So I thought that yeah, that should be well enough exchange for me. Of course he can yeah, attack the pawn on d5, but I can do in return same for c3 pawn, and it's hard to say who is winning here. Probably my a pass pawn could be more threatful than the one that my opponent has on d and c, or those two even. So yeah, this is why my opponent didn't want to have that on the chessboard. Except he has played h3, rook to a6, and right now knight to e7, and that's a really nice trap that has been made by my opponent, because after such intuitive and yeah, the line that firstly came to my mind, he can simply win a pawn by overload of the queen. Because yeah, the queen is and this at the same time defending the e7 bishop and d5 pawn. So that would be a lose for me probably. But instead, I could simply play rook to d8. And the win of that move is that, yeah, I'm preventing that knight from getting the c7 field square for himself. And right now, it's hard to make a move with this knight because he cannot do any immediate threat right away. And yeah, there are only problems with that. My opponent played and yeah, for instance, if he would play something not that active here, I can simply go to the e6, and no way to defend the knight on e8. Of course, he can try to yeah, to win that piece back later on, but that would be at least I know a pawn up for me, or yeah, something like that. So that was more or less what I had at my mind during that moment, that yeah, such endgame should be preferable for me, because I have or even like that, yeah, I have a clear piece up, and yeah, should have a chances to make a win out of that. But my opponent played better move than king to h2 here. He played c4 immediately. And the advantage of that move is that, yeah, he can push the pawn on d5 to put the pressure on the e file immediately. And after taking the knight on e8, he has a really strong move, which is queen to c8. And right now, I thought that, yeah, that should be probably only a draw for me. I thought that it's a really easy thing to achieve. After king to h8, king to h7, I just went to the yeah, out of the last line to get rid of the pin on the bishop here. And after exchanging the pieces, I moved the bishop to b6, and yeah, I thought that it's a drawish position, because after something like that, I'm taking the pawn from here. He's taking the pawn from yeah, probably need to take that first. That was the position that I had at my head. And yeah, thought that this should be probably a forced draw because probably not so many chances on my side to make any good progress here because yeah, both of the kings are similarly problematic, and that would be hard to defend that. But instead of that, my opponent played a really well move, and he took that with the rook. And right now, the threat is that yeah, he is planning to take to move the rook to b8, and I might have some problems there. And yeah, you can ask yourself why the f2 pawn is hanging, but yeah, after that, there is a double attack on c2, and the piece is lost. I of course has seen that. I have played rook to e2 with yeah counter attacking the f2 pawn, giving even more pressure there. He played queen to c4. I have returned to e7, queen to c2, and I had to make a really hard decision here because it's losing after yeah returning the king to the last file because yeah it's almost made. It's made actually, not almost. So I had to make a hard decision here and move the pawn to g6, and due that I had a weak diagonal on between h8 and a1, which could be very problematic and gave my opponent many mating chances that I had to calculate all the way through to the end of the game. Rook to b8, rook to d7, just preventing from queen from getting the mate on c8 and yeah, any mating chances here, because after that I'm forcing the exchange and yeah, once again, drawish position at least. So he played a4, just keeping the pawn on the light square, which is strategically positive for the endgame. I've made something similar on the king side, put on my pawn on h5, also making an extra space for the king to move to h6 later on, and also making a potential push pawn to h4, because then I will have some extra mating potential on the white's king. h4, bishop to d4. And yeah, at first glance, it looks like, yeah, I have blundered something because he's almost mating me on the king side and also attacking the rook. But simply here, I could just answer queen to f5. Problematic line here was, of course, yeah, and yeah, there is no mate here because the h8 square is defended by the bishop, and he cannot yeah add the bishop to the game because yeah I can simply take that with the check. And also the critical line here was what would happen after this, and that could be a very problematic thing for me because yeah, one of the lines that I could play was something like that. But to be honest, I'm not sure if that's not a lost endgame because yeah, I cannot just give up this pawn because it might be a dead end for me. So I'm forced to defend that, and then his king is simply more active immediately. So yeah, it would be a question if he would be able to conclude that advantage here, because he definitely has more active possibilities here. But yeah, that was the critical line that I have seen during the game. But instead, he just chased the king and then played rook to b5, which is not that good because yeah, I can simply return the queen to the f6. And right now, yeah, you could see that the pawn is hanging, but this is the trap that I have created for my opponent because he would lose the queen after such trap. Fortunately for him, he has discovered that. But yeah, due that those two moves with the rooks, I have managed to get the active square for my queen here. And from right now, I can offer the exchange of the bishops. It's hard to prevent that from happening. And after the queens are exchanged, his king would also get some possibilities of getting checkmated here. So, but yeah, that would be probably still a draw. And this is also what happened in the game because yeah, we just repeated the position a couple of times and decided to take the draw. But if my opponent would try to force a win here, he could lose that. If he would play something, I know, not that active hero like rook to f8, trying to put an extra pressure on f7 pawn, then I'm having my own mating opportunities here, like here, because yeah, uh, there is a pin on the king here, and yeah, the queen cannot be taken. So yeah, there have been many tactical opportunities at the that end game. I'm not sure if yeah, maybe I have missed something there, and eventually my opponent could win that end game at some point. It is possible, but after the game, I'm pretty okay and happy about my defending here. What I'm not happy about is yeah, the fact that I'm in such easy way just lose the advantage or small advantage that I had after the opening. I think yeah, after exchanging the pieces here, right after I had that chance here, would be much more effective for me. And same probably a few moves later, like here, I could just simply play knight to f6 and yeah, also for some extra exchanges here, and that would be also at least draw with advantage for me. And because of the lines that I have chosen, my opponent had more initiative, and yeah, I had to fight for a draw. In those lines, probably he would be the one who would try to force a draw. So, yeah, that's simply worse occasion. And yeah, but at the end, once again, draw against a bit higher rated opponent, and also as black. So I'm accepting that with honor and respect to my opponent. Tomorrow I will play against woman FIDE master player, so that's gonna be a tough one because it's always tough to play with the titled player. But yeah, I hope to get some advantage because I'm playing white. So yeah, that should be something positive for me. Yeah, if you're still watching that, please leave in the comments text isolated pawn. And yeah, if you liked the video, please leave the like, and yeah, see you next time.